You're live.
Welcome back to Middle-earth. For the last time, at least, during this very, very long campaign of the One Ring. With us tonight are the OGs that started this with us, at least the ones that still remain in our group. We have Raven playing Aglaron. We have Tet playing Aravule. And Oi! Doc is back with us playing Vidar. And last but not least, we have a very hungry and very loving hobbit by the name of Goodwill, played by Zypher. And without further ado, we're going to get started. It'll be a very short session, just to kind of say goodbye to our characters, and then we're going to hang out and drink and make merry, as all hobbits are wont to do. Without further ado, we'll cue up the appropriate music. It is snowing outside, and it is cold and dark. But inside there is light. And in one particularly cozy hobbit hole, there is light and laughter and warmth and love. And Goodwill Tuk, maybe puffing on a pipe, or maybe sipping a pint, or most certainly eating another treat, smiles. He is surrounded by friends and family as they laugh and sing. He watches them go around and remembers his adventures. Indeed, it's been a rough year since returning to the Shire. He had to say goodbye to his friends, to Arthanur, to Aravule, Aglaron, and Vidar. And there was that nasty business with Sharky and the Battle of the Bywater. Who would have thought? A battle! In the Shire! A reasonable hobbit supposes it had to be done, however. At least that's what Frodo and Sam say, but in the end it's not the battle that mattered, because reasonable hobbits would rather stay home. No, they only care for the little heroes of the Shire and that which it defended. A warm hearth, good plain food, and the health of their children. Yes, Goodwill thinks it will be a good night. And Zypher, I'll let you take it away.
The Hobbit's house is bright and warm on the inside. Goody is sitting in his favorite chair. All around him are his friends and family. Everyone is heartily drinking and eating a feast Goody took 2 days to prepare. It was a labor of love. After all, with everything the Shire and the Hobbits have been through, it is only with merriment and joy can we all push back the memories of the scouring. Goody takes a big bite of a slice of seed cake and washes it down with some fine golden winter ale. The ale warms his very depths and stirs something long missed. He picks his pipe from the side table by his chair and puffs a few quick breaths to reignite the long-bottom leaf. Soon the room is filled with faint blue smoke of the long bottom, covering the air with an aroma of resiny pine and smoky chestnuts. The room slowly fades from his conscious as he is taken aback to a time when he was in the woods. He remembers a fire. An elf, a human, a dwarf, and some others were sitting around it. They were on the far side of the misty mountains. It was a similar night. A cold breeze blew as we all huddled round the fire. Much was discussed that night. The lore of the land that was, the lore of the times gone past, great kings and great deeds. Goody absently puffs at his pipe, and in the smoke he sees the face of an elf. Aglaron the witty, Goody smiles. Many an arrow he let sail. Few would hit their mark as they failed. But when the time came to stand up to the shadow, none braver than the elf with the bow. Goody takes another puff of the leaf, and in the smoke he sees another face. A great brown shaggy beard he sees. Oi! My friend Vidar I see. With a mattock he cleaved his foes. Much gold he got for his woes. A leader of his people he is rightly now. With his bodyguards abound, much glory he must have found, and Goody chuckles to himself thinking of Vidar. A few more puffs, Goody starts to make smoke rings, and the children all start to giggle and screech with mirth. To the hearth, Goody's gaze is drawn, the fire roiling, keeping the house warm. The final face forms in the fire as Goody gazes upon it, a face of a king, a leader of men, a warrior of justice, Aravule. Goody smiles fondly as he thinks of him. Many dangers we faced, all surmounted under Aravule's grace. His heart was conflicted often, Goody thought, yet his duty he performed. I hope he found his happiness, for melancholy was his companion. And Goody kind of shakes his head at the thought of that. A child suddenly jumps into Goody's lap and tugs at his coat. Goody is woken from his reverie. Tell us of your adventures, Uncle Goody. Tell us of the scary spider. Tell us of the last homely house. Tell us, tell us. Goody shifts in his chair a bit. His shoulder is in pain from the child's weight, reminding him of the orc blade that sunk during the battle for the Shire. Yes, tales of my friends are better than remembering what we hobbits wrought upon ourselves, when one of us could betray the beauty of our land to assuage the greed and power-mongering of the wicked. No, the tales of my friends is what we should live on, tales of heroism and camaraderie in the face of darkness. Goody clears his throat and is about to oblige the child when there is a knock at the door. Now, who could that be at this late an hour? Goody says, as he lifts the child from his lap and makes his way to the door.
Hello? I seek a Goodwill Tuk-Tuk, you hear a voice from outside the door. If perchance Goodwill Tuk-Tuk would clear away the condensation that no doubt has gathered inside the window pane, he would see, perhaps 20 yards away, a team of 5 or 6 horses in the snow. Darkly cloaked figures huddled at their feet, turned away from him so Goodwill would be unable to see his face. If he looks outside the door, the figure standing in before the hobbit hole is tall and is similarly cloaked as well. Does he open the door?
Goodwill wipes the window, tries to see. Name is correct. Goodwill opens the door slightly and then slowly with some more courage. Yes, this is the house of Goodwill. And how may I serve you, good sir?
Ah, this is just the place I was seeking. I remember dropping you off here 2 long years ago. And with freshly falling snow alighting on his dark cloak, the figure pulls back his hood, revealing a face you haven't seen in a very long time. Arthanur of Inladris is there. He seems to be girded in a white light as the moon shines down upon him through the gently drifting snow. I'm glad to see you well, Goodwill.
Goody, for a moment, is just transfixed by the sight of Arthanur. He can't believe himself. Then he finds his vision blurring, and he can't explain it, and he realizes it's tears rolling down his cheek, and he wipes it. He steadies himself with the door, and he pushes it wide open and rushes to Arthanur, barely reaching to his hips, and gives him a big bear hug. Arthanur! It has been so long since I've seen you. Where have you been, old friend?
Arthanur gives a hearty laugh as you run to him, and he gives you a big hug, running his hands through your curly hair. You hear voices like merry bells behind him laugh as well. And as you look up, you see dark and golden-haired elves bring back their clothes. You see fine jewelry set upon their brow, and again, as the light falls upon them from the moon, they seem to glitter in the snow. Where haven't I been, Goodwill Tuk-Tuk? There's a tale I would like to tell you, but I'm afraid, am I interrupting?
No, no, not at all, Arthanur. It is a time for cheer, us hobbits. Come inside. Bring everyone in. There's a lot of food and drink to be had. I am honored to invite you home, dear friend. Much have my nights gone past, thinking of you and the rest. I always wonder if you were safe. I know there was trouble out beyond these peaceful waters, but my heart is happy now to see you. Come.
Your hospitality is unmatched, my old friend, Arthanur says. He definitely steps through the threshold, taking care not to strike his head on the low ceiling of the hobbit hole. He gestures behind him, and the other figures, 4 of them, enter as well. There is no haughtiness about the elves this night. They seem to show the utmost respects to the hobbits of the Shire. For events have transpired that bring the names of certain halflings to the mouths of the great and small all throughout Middle-earth. Arthanur catches up with Goodwill. He says what Goodwill likely already knows, that the Dark Lord has fallen, that the One Ring has been destroyed. He also brings the glad news that their company of old, Aravule, Vidar, Aglaron, they all still draw a breath. In fact, he asks Goodwill if he is game for one more journey. While watching Goodwill smoking a pipe, he says, "We do not need to leave for another few days. But there is news from the south, from the land of Gondor, where the High King Elessar now reigns. You may have met him before. Aragorn. They call him the Elfstone. He is journeying north to visit his northern kingdoms of old, and he is stopping in the realm of Tharbad. Aravule now sits upon the throne of that fine land, and Aravule has requested your presence, Goodwill Tuk.
Goody just jumps around with glee and joy. Of course. My thoughts have wandered. My dreams have wandered with it, way past the misty mountains, over hill and dale, thinking of you and my friends. And as he's saying this, all the kids in the house are like, sitting behind chairs and little sofas and like peering at Arthanur. Goody has described Arthanur to them. They know who Arthanur is from all of Goody's stories and descriptions. And you can see every hobbit in that room and that house is, mouth agape, just staring at Arthanur and the rest of the elves. Goody is rushing around, slamming slices of seed cake and winter ale into each of the elves' hands. And then he's running around the house, picking up his walking stick, looking for his bag and kerchiefs, and then thinking of what to take for the road. What about Levensies? And what about breakfast and lunch? And he comes back and drops some cold meat onto the table for everybody to gorge on. Yes. It has long been since I've seen Aravule, Aglaron, Vidar. I hope to see all of them. I will make the journey with you, Arthanur.
And see them we will. I can only hope, Goodwill, that you will grace us with poetry and song on the way.
I will. Much of my times have been passed writing about our adventures, the things we did, the things we saw. And Goodwill will hand a small leather-bound book with yellow pages that have been frayed at the ends. He sees neat cursive writing, and it's different stories from the adventures they had.
Arthanur leafs through the book, smiling. His once haughty visage is softened, it seems. Though he is happy, you notice a hint of sadness. It's the sadness that often graces the faces of the elves soon before they sail into the west. This volume is magnificent. Lord Elrond would be challenged to find anything more grand. Perhaps you would copy it for me. It belongs in the halls of Ben Labrys for posterity.
I have regaled many a hobbit in this shire of ours with these tales, and I remember these tales as if it were yesterday. Fighting the brother of Shelob, meeting the men of the south, helping that castle gain back its freedom, and almost losing you, the thought of losing you. My words to Vidar that cold, bloody morning. But here you stand, my friend. It is yours to keep. One last gift. Maybe
I am
something
honored.
that you can remember me by.
I am honored, my friend. And your spirit is much greater than your stature.
Ah, wait. And then with that, Goody runs into the house again, into a room, and he comes running out, and he has this, like a dinner dress that has been built from elven silk. Remember this, Arthanur? Remember this? The winter we spent in Rivendell, when our fellowship was scattered across the lands. Yes, I remember King Aragorn. He was in Rivendell, he had brought some news, and I remember Glorfindel, and there was a mighty feast that evening. This was the clothing you bought for me, for I did not have clothes that would befit Lord Elrond's mighty halls. I have kept them since.
I indeed remember this. Songs of friendship. That was a merry night indeed. And such nights still are before us, my dear friend.
Then it shall be more merry nights ahead, Arthanur. I shall pack this for the grand halls of King Aravule and Tharbad. It shall be a merry time indeed.
Unless you have anything else, that scene will start to fade as you make preparations to move south along the Greenway. But far to the south in Tharbad, other preparations are being made. And now we find Aravule in Tharbad. There we go. You guys should be good to go there.
Yes.
Likewise, it is winter as Aravule strolls through the streets with Willward by his side. Perhaps he has spent the last days or weeks preparing for the coming of King Elessar and, maybe even more importantly, preparing for the arrival of some old friends. Willward walks on Aravule's right. This place is looking quite grand, my lord. Nearly all the repairs are finished. The decorations are set. The food is cooking and the bread is baking. Now where is that ale? There is ale in need of drinking, my lord.
The ale is for you, my friend, and for all that have toiled in the last few years. Now is the time for merriment, and soon our king will arrive. So, perhaps the drinking should be done now before he does, and think we are Dunlendines or some other wild folk.
I won't turn down that offer, my lord. It's been a long few years. And though we have lost many good men and women, I dare say it is my pride to still be at your side, Aravule.
And it is me who takes pride in inspiring the hearts of such pure men and women from these lands of the north who have come to this place in Tharbad and rebuilt it, and the likeness of old when our kinsmen, our ancestors ruled here, keeping watch over the people and the river, the Grey Flood, once more to protect the north and the south along these, perhaps in time, more peaceful roads through Eredor and beyond.
I will not say that I miss battle, Lord Aravule. It would be folly to do so when so many men shed their blood. It is a tragic thing, I think, that men do not enjoy peace while they have peace. In times of war, they long for peace, and in times of peace, they long for action. Such is the plight of men like ourselves. We live these short years not like the elves, and so we are doomed ever to look forward to tomorrow, not enjoying today. But alas, there is today, and there is ale to drink. Follow me, Aravule, son of Arafel. Let us have our fill, so we do not embarrass ourselves in front of King Elessar.
I suppose I can have one tankard.
1 dozen. Ha ha ha! And Willward and Aravule walk through the streets of Tharbad. A lot of the construction looks quite new, expertly built by expert hands, cut stone, brilliantly erected thatched roofed houses and buildings. They go higher and higher towards one of the spires above Tharbad, and Willward and Aravule can look down upon the plain below. Ah, my lord. See the fertile plains below, see the flowers sprouting, the grass growing greener by the day as winter fades. I remember when the dark blood of many orcs were upon that field. So much have we accomplished, my lord.
At a great price. Mixed with that dark blood was the blood of men who gave their lives so that we could have peace in our time. Let us not forget them with glory, with songs of glory, but instead let us remember them with songs of thanks.
And thanks we will have. And as Aravule and Willward reach that high spire, they look down below. All the men and women and children of Tharbad are preparing for King Elessar's return, and they are dressed in like their most festive colors. Strands of flowers are hung above every doorway. Small wreaths are placed in the windows with yellow and purple blooms. And as they see Aravule, they cry out, "Aravule! Aravule, son of Arafel! Heir of Arthanur and Prince of Cardolan! Hip hooray! Huzzah! Hooray!" Willward says, "You're a popular lord, Aravule."
Aravule gives a slight frown, not comfortable really with his kingship as of yet, and just shakes his head. For now, victories have been won and blood has been spilt, and we are at a new dawn. But the days will grow longer and longer, and perhaps my rule will not be so rejoiced. Who knows?
As I said before, it is the plight of men to always look for tomorrow, but just this once I'm going to enjoy today. Come now. Enough talking about drinking. Let's actually do some.
He gives a short smile and says, "Of course, for if our allies and friends of yesteryear do come, they will drink me under the table quite certainly, especially the short one."
And Willward gives a hearty laugh as that scene fades to a close. And now we find ourselves well south of the Shire along the Greenway. A hasty shelter has been erected along the Greenway, and though the temperatures are frigid and cold, inside the tent Arthanur and Goodwill are keeping good company, exchanging old stories and warming their hand by a fire and cooking up all sorts of tasty treats, I'm sure. They're along the Greenway, and nearby a road leads off into the woods. It's a dark wood, but there's no
sight, bro.
howling
We
of
don't have
wolves.
sight.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Let's do this and it. All players. Any better now?
Yes, perfect.
Yep.
Not for me.
Let's see here.
Move our tokens, maybe.
Save. Let me just throw out some tokens on there. Where is your token? Aravule. And you guys see now?
I don't see anything. There you go. Now I do.
Good now?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, they are kind of in a tent and chatting. Arthanur and Goodwill are exchanging stories. When suddenly, through the gloom, they do hear the sound of marching feet shuffling through the woods, almost ominously. And you can hear the sound of armor swishing and voices speaking, but they're not guttural voices, they're fair voices. Eventually, Goodwill took. Through the woods, you see a host of elves arrive, and at the head of that column are two familiar faces, Vidar, son of Godar, and Aglaron. And then suddenly all the elves kind of stop along the road and they throw back their clothes, and with precision they all stand in a column while Vidar and Aglaron come forward. With them is another elf and kind of shouts out to Arthanur and Goodwill, "Who goes there along the Greenway? Whose fire does this belong to?"
Goody immediately jumps to his feet and stands on the tallest log that's on the ground. "It is us, Goodwill Tuk, and Arthanur." And Goody is like peering into the distance, his hand over his eyes, trying to make out who it is.
Yeah, I'm going to have a scene where like Aglaron comes slowly forward and maybe they pull back their cloaks and then you see their visage.
Do my eyes deceive me? Is that Aglaron?
The rare
And those-
smile splits Aglaron's face as he recognizes Goodwill.
And I couldn't miss those two bodyguards. Is that you, Vidar?
And stepping out from the snow, almost behind Aglaron, he steps off to the side, and you see him raise his hands to his brow as if to shield his eyes from the glare off the snow from your fire. And he says, "Oi, who is that?"
Arthanur stands as well.
It is
It is
I,
I.
Goodwill.
And I, Arthanur. It's been a long time, dwarf. I am surprised you have not fallen into a pit somewhere. Your clumsiness has caught up to you.
And Vidar drops his mattock, his pack, and everything, and starts running through the snow towards Goodwill and Arthanur.
Aglaron close at his heels.
He's shuffling through the snow, coming up to his knees, and he's laughing. "Oh, is that you, Goodwill? Arthanur? Is that the two of you?"
Goodwill takes off in a sprint as well as you see hobbit feet leaving their marks in the snow. It is I! It is us!
Vidar reaches Goodwill and embraces him in a huge hug, lifts him off the ground.
It has been so long.
And he spins him around. "Goodwill, my little friend. How long has it been? It is so good to see your face."
Yours too, Vidar, yours too.
Vidar sets Goodwill down back in the snow, and he turns to Aglaron, and he smiles and he nods his head towards Goodwill and Arthanur. "Looks like we've found some friends out here."
Indeed. Aglaron kneels down, so that he's eye to eye with Tuk-Tuk. It's wonderful to see you, Goody.
You too. You too, and you can at this point see tears streaming down Goody's face. I knew I would meet you someday. I hoped I would meet you someday. I wished I would meet you someday. The times they kept us apart. The deeds of others kept us apart. But the bonds of fellowship shall always abide.
Aglaron clasps hands with Arthanur. And you, brother. It's good to see you as well.
Arthanur kind of stands forth and he gives Aglaron and Vidar a sturdy handshake. I jest, Vidar. It is good to see you again. I have forgotten how broad your shoulders were. And you dropped something back there in the snow. Don't be caught without that mattock, lest a spider come along.
Vidar lets
And
out
you-
just a large laugh at that.
And you, Aglaron. The eaves of Mirkwood have smiled upon you. You look wonderful. I can only hope you have spent the last 2 years training your aim.
Indeed, brother, the hunting has been good.
Ah, more hunting will be had, I'm sure. And I assume that you and the column of elves are headed to Tharbad? The new High King is sure to visit. He has requested all of our presence.
Yes, you must join us.
I will. At least for a time. And he looks back along the columns of elves, and they too have that slight hint of sadness upon them as the sun kind of falls over their right shoulder. They have polished golden helms on, the type of helms you'd see kind of that from that last battle of the Second Age and brilliant blue cloaks that seem to glitter in the moonlight and shimmer in the snow. In this new age of Middle-earth, the elves will soon depart. But that is no reason to be sad here. I will not say, do not cry, for all tears are not evil. We have days to look forward to. And I would very much like to see Tharbad. I have not seen Aravule in a very long time. It was always his dream to see that once splendid city rebuilt. To be a home for men. To be a bastion of peace in the region.
It will be good to see our young king of men again.
I can't wait to see his dour face one more time.
Aglaron chuckles at that.
Very well. Well, make camp with us this evening. We will leave at first light. Kind of looks towards the sky. If I am any elf at all, fairer weather is ahead. The spring comes, and with it, hope of a new age of this Middle-earth.
Vidar walks back and collects his things and brings it back up to the campfire. He's setting himself up, cozying up to the fire, and he's just looking around at the group of people that he shared few, brief, but mighty adventures with, and his heart just is full. He's looking at Goodwill, the glow of the fire on his face, and Arthanur sitting there, peaceful, Aglaron, the elves all around them, and Vidar is happy.
Aglaron pulls a recently skinned hair from a pouch at his belt, looks at Goodwill. Goody, would you do us the honor?
Indeed, Aglaron. A mighty fine stew we will have this evening, enough for everyone in our company. And Goody from his pack pulls out a few pots and pans and starts, mincing up the rabbit. Gets some water from the snow, melts it. He has some potatoes, onions, and leeks, some salt and pepper, and he puts it all in the pot. He puts the meat in, and you can start hearing the water bubble.
Vidar reaches into his bag and pulls out a small tankard of ale. And he starts pouring it into everyone's cups and passing it around.
Much thanks, Vidar.
And he nods at you, of course.
And as the moon crosses the sky, wisps of cloud obscure it briefly, but then again that silver light reappears, just like the hope for Middle-earth. Just when times seem darkest and the clouds gather, that light is out again. The night passes and there are no grunts from orcs, there are no howls from wolves. It's only the sweet smell of food cooking on a crackling fire and the laughter of old friends.
Goody breaks out into a song. We have lived a life well. You say, Arthanur, that the times of elves has come to an end. But know this, when I stare down the end of life and the paths we have taken, I pray that I have truly loved and be loved in turn. I pray that the work we have done has mattered and it has burnt with the passion that we all know. I hope we have been kind and we have improved the lives of others. We have cherished our friends, their exploits, their victories, and their defeats. When you prepare to leave this Middle-earth, I wish you have no regret. for you have shown much kindness and a debt I cannot repay. So let me say this to you, one and all. I love you, for you all matter to me. We do not know the day or time of our own passing. But when and if it does come, I see a smile upon my face, knowing I have friends like you by my side. For it is a life truly well lived.
Aglaron raises his tankard with these words.
Vidar raises his tankard, and he nods his head and looks down at the snow.
Goody wipes a tear from his eyes, raises his tankard as well. May your journey beyond this Middle-earth take you to wondrous places, Arthanur.
Arthanur smiles. Your wishes are well received, my friends. All of you. And feelings of love are not something an elf shares lightly. But I can say that each of you mean that much to me. And I can provide reassurance, Goodwill, that death is the end. Believe me, I have been there, my fine hobbit. When the end comes, there is not pain. There is a far green field and a sunrise over a country filled with sweet smells and songs of friends. But us are called back to a greater purpose. And he walks out to the moonlight, and you can see that glow around him. That same glow you saw around Glorfindel. But the sun will soon rise. The hosts of King Elessar will expect us in Tharbad, not to mention our old friend Aravule. If I know him, he is already pulling his hair out in anxiety for the preparations.
Vidar turns his head away from all of the others to wipe away the wet in his eyes.
Ah, look there, Vidar. What spices did you put in this dwarf's food that he cannot handle such things? His eyes are watering, something I've never seen from a dwarf.
It's spicy. That's what's going on here. It's spicy.
It's the spice of life, my dear friend Vidar. Come now. Let us mount our horses. Goodwill, would you ride with me?
Yes, one more time, Arthanur.
And he helps Goodwill onto the back of his horse, and as the sun rises in the morning, the host of the north, comprised of one hobbit from the Shire, an elf from Wood, a dwarf from Erebor, the Iron Hills, and Arthanur of Rivendell, make their way further south along the Greenway, the former capital of the realm of Cardolan, Tharbad. Let's go ahead and grab your tokens here. Copy. Paste. And move you guys over. All right, everybody should be go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps a few days have passed as you march down the Greenway. As you go further and further south, the weather gets ever milder. One is change in latitude, the other is spring is on the horizon. And you see birds flying back north from the south, where maybe they winter near Herod. At one point, even along one of the rivers, you see what seems to be a gull as it cries out in the morning. Arthanur smiles and points forward, and as you go around a bend in the road far to the south, you see banners flying in the wind, and you see the rebuilt realm, Tharbad. As you do so, you get closer and closer. There are citizens lined along the streets as you enter the city. As you do so, they give a cheer. And eventually, down from one of the newly cut marble steps of Tharbad walks Aravule. And I'll let you take it away.
As the host, if you will, of friends approaches Tharbad, Aravule has had scouts watching for them so he would know of their arrival. And when they approach his city, the ancient city of Cardolan that rests next to the Gwaetho, the Grey Flood, Aravule walks on his own 2 feet with Willward at his side, standing before the gates of a rebuilt wall, watching as Arthanur, Aglaron, Vidar, and Goodwill all approach. He crosses his arms over his chest, smiling slightly as he waits.
Faster, Arthanur, faster!
As you say that, Arthanur gives a little kick to his horse and rides off into a gallop. He looks to his left, maybe where Aglaron rides, and I don't know if Vidar is behind him. I'll meet you there, or I'm a dwarf.
Aglaron spurs his mount.
Vidar spurs his pony.
Have a care, Vidar. Don't fall off. Says the elf as he gallops away.
And well ahead of the column of marching elves rides Arthanur and Goodwill and Aglaron and Vidar on horseback. And they rein their horses. Their horses give a whinny into the air. And they kind of stop right before you, Aravule.
Goody scrambles down the horse and rushes up the stairs. He's almost about to hug Aravule and he remembers where he is and he falls to one knee.
Vidar is right behind him, also hopping off of his pony and scrambling up along with Goodwill. And as soon as he sees Goodwill, he remembers, oh, that's correct. And he smiles as he sees Goodwill take a knee, and happily does so himself.
The elf joins the other two.
Aravule looks quite consternated at their bowing to him, but then he looks to Arthanur and says, "Well, Arthanur, will you bow too?"
He gives a very shallow bow. I give credit where credit is due, my lord. This realm have not had a prince upon the throne in many, many years. Of course, I was alive for an age before that. The lives of men are but a passing thing to me, but like I said, I will give credit where credit is due. You have rebuilt a fine city, my lord, and it's quite a compliment that he says, my lord, to you.
Mm-hmm. I jest, Arthanur. Please rise. Stop this. You're already making me feel ill at ease. Come, embrace me as a friend instead of on your knees. And he kind of...
Oh!
Goodwill pops up from the ground and rushes again, almost to Aravule's right. It has
Yeah,
been too long, dear friend. It has been too long.
Arthanur's going in for the hug, and you know how little kids will run in before and crash into somebody? That's what you do to Aravule.
Yeah, he
Vidar,
hugs everyone that approaches at least.
Yeah, the crowd kind of sees you guys in your embrace. The legends of what do we call you? The Fellowship of the King.
Book 1?
I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, you guys had a name that the kinsfolk started calling you, the of the Kingsfell. I'm gonna look it up. Keep RPing.
Vidar pops up as well and runs up and he's laughing and he nudges Goodwill. Oi, I just wanted to see how he'd react if we knelt in front of him. He did not disappoint.
Company of the Kingsfell. I think you were called.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, Aravule grunts to Vidar and shakes his head. Ah, Master Dwarf. It is good to see you after so long.
Yes, my lord, if I can call you as such.
I would prefer Aravule, if it pleases you.
Yes, Arvo, my friend. It has been a while. Our journeys have been long, separated, different paths, but I cannot tell you the joy I feel now that these paths have intersected once again. And he looks around at everyone. All of our paths. This feels right.
I am too pleased, and my heart brings joy to what I see before me. Old friends reunited. And he turns back to Goodwill, and I'll wait for Aglaron to come back before I address him. But he turns to Goodwill and kneels to bring himself down to his level, as Aravule is a very tall man. He says, Goodwill, I heard what happened to the Shire and what happened with Saruman. I am pleased that you have survived more than you could know.
I am pleased to see you again, good friend. And I survived because of my time with you. I learned how to lead my fellow into battle. Learned how to inspire the face of the shadow. All the time we spent and the adventures we had, it all helped the Shire. Even if you were not there, I fought with your spirit by my side. I am happy to know that you are happy again, my friend. Your kingdom is truly beautiful. It reflects on you well. I am glad for the adventures we had so I could see this place in all its glory. All our sacrifices, I say, were worth the pain.
It is only worth what we have sacrificed and what have so many made the ultimate sacrifice, that the free peoples of Middle-earth can be just that, free once more, without the threat of the shadow. Sauron and Saruman's defeat, cast from this Middle-earth once and for all. Tharbad is only a shadow of the courage that the peoples, such as Goodwill took, Vidar, son of Godar, my old friend Aglaron, and even Arthanur, have shown in these past few years. and the thousands more who have fought, and some that have died, for our freedom. Our friends, others of the company of the Kingsfell, who have fallen or departed. Yes, Tharbad will be that beacon of light here in the north, for any who seek friendship, kinship, and respite here. Any of the free peoples, elves, dwarves, even hobbits. Now, come. I made to bet with Willward that Goodwill would outdrink him, and I would like to see that challenge.
Goodwill lifts his coat, straightens his jacket, lifts his pants up, loosens it a bit. Willward, show me the tankards, my dear friend.
Willward is kind of standing to the side. He already has a tankard. He has beads of ale dripping down his red beard. Oh, Goodwill, Tuk. It's been too many days since I heard your voice. Your sweet song will again ring in my ears. Come, to the feast hall, each of you. We have but a day before the king arrives. Let's make fools of ourselves now, so we do not embarrass ourselves before the queen. They say Arwen is quite fair, and I intend to put on my best face for her. Ha ha!
A mighty plan indeed, Willward. We shall all do that. To the feast hall, and Goody doesn't know where he's going, but he's starting to, trudge up the stairs.
And Vidar immediately spins on his heels and follows Goody Tuk.
They all run up into the steps, and as they enter the hall, again, there's a great cheer, as the feast hall is already filled with men, women, and even they're letting the children dance on the bar at this point. You can smell fresh bread and hear the laughter of freedom as you enter the feast hall. And I'll let you tell me how you spend the rest of that night before we move to the return of the king.
I'm assuming there's a roaring fire in the feast hall.
Oh, of course.
And of course there is.
And on the spit.
And after several tankards of... Vidar stands up and holds his tankard up. And he looks over at Goodwill Tuk. Looks over at Aglaron, Arthanur, and Aravule. Looks over at Willward. He looks over at the others and he raises his tankard. Oh, all I have to say is, I have kin, ancestral lineage, kin that I love and protect, kin that I am bound by blood to. But then there's you lot, and he raises his tankard again. There's you lot, the kin of my chase, the kin of my adventures. You here, now, sitting and drinking with all of us. You are heartfelt kin that I will never look away from and never turn away from. You are the people that I will remember always. Cheers to you all. And he raises his tankard and just chugs it.
Goodwill screams cheer, raises his tankard and starts chugging it.
As Vidar says that in the feast hall, everybody raises a tankard. To Vidar! Vidar the bold! Vidar the brave! Steadfast of the Iron Hills! Huzzah! Yeah! eyes turn to Goodwill.
Many a nights I've thought about this. I have sung these songs in the fair halls of Rivendell. But I once again sing this song to all my friends. All of us have faced many trials and tribulations. We have seen loss, we have seen defeat, but we are here today because we achieved victory in the face of the unsurmountable. And I think it was all because of one thing that held us all together: our fellowship, our friendship. Not just to the six of us, not just to the company of the Kingsfell, but the people of Tharbad, the people of Gondor, the people of Rohan, the people of the Shire. We all fought side by side. We bled, we wept. But when the dawn came, we stood and we pushed back. And with that, Goodwill jumps up on the tallest table, picks a stool and stands up on the stool where everybody can see him. The feeling of friendship from the start is that special feeling in your heart. The feeling from deep down inside. A feeling that none of us should hide. A friend is there through good and bad. They make you happy when you are sad. They brighten up your darkest day just by the simple things they say. Our friendship cannot be bought or sold. It may get tarnished. It may get a little old. But we can all overcome our greatest fear because we have friends far and near. The only cost to our friendship is to make sure that it is never lost. A toast, my friends. The machinations of these times may take us far and wide, but the bonds of our fellowship shall always abide. To you, my friends, and with that, Goodwill raises his tankard. To you, my friends. To you, my friends. And then he chugs it down again.
Everyone gives a cheer as the diminutive hobbit seems to grow in stature while he's on the table addressing the audience. Every ear in that tavern is set upon every word that the hobbit speaks. For he certainly does have a way with words. And this Tharbad, this new bastion of peace, this crossroads of Eregion filled with folks of the countryside, now even a few elves that have journeyed here among this great host. They all turn their glasses to Goodwill and give a toast. To Goodwill Took, poet of the Shire, singer of songs, and lover of friends. To you, Goodwill, may your days be filled with peace and happiness, and may the Shire ever be foremost in our thoughts. Cheers!
Hey,
All the eyes turn to Vidar, son of Godar.
and he looks around. Oh, I was just killing the hobbit.
And there's a voice from the back of the bar. What's wrong, dwarf? You have your beard stuck in your tongue? Everybody kind of laughs.
Vidar responds, No, man. My beard is not stuck in my mouth. My heart is stuck in my throat. And he takes a solemn sip from his tankard.
As they say that, there is a fiddle starts to play. That is not a sad song, but a more toned down song. And the raucous laughter goes away, and people fall into happy but hushed conversations. Is there anything else?
That's it from me.
Aravule will say something. He's sitting at the end of the table with his friends, not distinguishing himself at all, until after their discourse and speeches he stands and says, "I've been thinking about this for a while. Thinking about a new honor and a new tradition for Cardolan and Tharbad. These four, above all others, are as key to this place that we stand, Tharbad, Cardolan, and the freedom of the West than any other. And so, it is my honor to induct each of you as Knights of Cardolan. Elves, dwarves, and hobbits." And he draws his sword and first looks to Goodwill. "Kneel, Goodwood Tuk.
Goodwill rushes up and kneels at the feet of Aravule.
And he places the flat of his blade on one shoulder and the next and says, "Goodwill Tuk, you are now a Knight of Cardolan. With this honor, whenever you need aid, I will be there." And he smiles and says, "Stand, and everyone here, rejoice that Goodwill Tuk is now a Knight of Cardolan." And he kind of gives a hand wave.
Goodwill stands up and he picks somebody else's tankard, two tankards in his hand, and he kind of like does a whole like chest and fist bump in the air. "A Knight of Cardolan!" And he starts chugging from both the tankards and starts like tap dancing all over the place.
Arvel says, "Ah, yes. Our military orders are strong." And he will...
Everybody laughs as the Hobbit dances, obviously.
Yeah, and he will go through the rest of them, and if they accept his quote-unquote honor, will tap them on the shoulder with his sword and announce them as Knights of Cardolan.
Aglaron gratefully accepts.
Yeah, Vidar, he looks somewhat shocked, and he's like, oh, yeah, and he doesn't know exactly how to respond, but he definitely kneels down and gets on one knee next to Goodwill Tuk as he's being knighted, and he's just holding his head down, just in anticipation and shock.
Arthanur, in uncharacteristic fashion, gracefully accepts. Except he will say that you don't expect me to use a longsword, do you? This has served me just fine in these many years. He has his famous spear kind of brandished, and everybody looks at him and starts to laugh and gives a cheer.
Arvel grabs him by the shoulder and says, "It's an honorary title."
Of course.
And he will embrace each of them. Yeah, that's all I got.
That night will wear on. There's lots of fun to be had. There's lots of jokes to be made about Arthanur's haughtiness, about his arrogance, about his willingness to always be in defensive mode while the others rush forward. Yet he was the one that was killed once upon a time. Of course, there is Aglaron, who seems that he could not hit the broadside of a Mumakil or Oliphant. Yet when the time was right, did you shoot down the? Who shot down the fell beast? Did you shoot it down? I think it might have been you. I think you finally hit that thing.
I think maybe it was.
Yeah. When the time was right, in that last battle of Tharbad, he was the one who felled the fell beast, as it were. There are jokes made about Vidar and his mannerisms and manners of speech. Oi! But more is to be said about his Matic. Because there's not a single one present who wouldn't prefer to be fighting at Vidar's side. Because when that Matic is brandished, all foes, orcs, wolves, evil men, there's not one that would not shy away from that weapon. And then again, there's Goodwill Tuk-Tuk. The glue that binds this fellowship together, with song, with his stature that just begs to be defended, and so gives everybody a common purpose, the defense of the free people of Middle-earth. And last but not least, there's no shortage of accolades given to Aravule, the leader of men who brought this western part of Middle-earth together, to stand against the tide of Isengard when it rose to its height, to repel Saruman and his Uruk-hai, and after that battle, the turning of the tide, and well, we all know the rest of the story. But there's one more morning to come in this story, and it is that next morning. King Elessar is set to arrive into Tharbad, the new capital of Cardolan, one of the northern kingdoms of Middle-earth. I'll let you guys kind of role play what you're doing that fine morning. Gone is the bitter cold. Gone is the snow on the ground, it's melted. And very strangely, as if by some elven magic, small flowers of Kingsfell have opened up and bloomed along the road south of Tharbad, as you all stand atop the spires waiting for the king's arrival.
Aravule would be busy preparing for his arrival, ordering the smallest details that would prepare for Elessar and his great host to visit the newly constructed and renovated Tharbad. That's what he would do, spend his day doing, yeah.
Goodwill would spend the whole day cleaning himself. He has taken out the elven silk that he was once gifted in Rivendell. He's cleaned it all. He's made sure his handkerchief is all clean. He wears his garments, polishes his shoes, and waits in anticipation in his room to be called.
Vidar is polishing his armor. He's sharpening his weapons. He's going about his business. He's trying to get his bodyguards to just get out of his way because they're just always in his way.
Forgot the bodyguards.
The bodyguards are always in his way. And he's just basically just taking care of his items and his gear and his things as he waits to go out and see his friends again.
Aglaron, for the first time in any of his companions' memory, has traded his well-worn leather armor for a shirt of shining ring, or chain rather, and the tabard of a knight of Cardolan.
Hey. An Aravule.
Did you not hear me earlier?
Yep. Oh yeah, sorry. And so, in that morning, it wears on, and eventually the breeze turns a little bit cool and wafts through your hair, coming from the west. And it is as if you hear sweet singing. Oops. Let me grab her.
Hey, Bo, can you just start and stop the music on Siren Sleep again, please?
Stopped.
And start it again, because my play just quit suddenly. Awesome, I can hear it, thanks.
When from around the bend come a host of white horses, and on those horses are knights of Gondor with their polished armor, and on their breast they have the white tree. At their forefront comes a woman that you can see even across the fields before Tharbad, most fair, who is Queen Arwen. The sunlight seems to shine down upon her, and in her train is her husband, the new High King, King Elessar. They get closer and closer to Tharbad, and the crowd, again, as much as they did for you, they line the street, kind of cheering as they go, getting closer and closer. Eventually they stop and they look up towards one of the towers to where all of you are standing. Aragorn kind of stops and dismounts his horse and cries up into the tower. "It is I, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, who has come here again to this realm. Of old they called it Cardolan, and in this fourth age of Middle-earth, Cardolan it shall be called again. Tharbad, where is its prince?"
Aravule calls back, "It is I, Aravule, son of Arafel, my king." And we're in a tower, you said?
Yeah, it's like above probably where they would enter or whatever.
Yeah, he quickly makes his way down to the ground level where the king is, and he immediately kneels before him. "I am yours to command, my king."
You kneel this day, Aravule, son of Arafel. But there is no man or woman here that did not do their part. For the freedom of Middle-earth is now secured. It has been 2 years since we fought together, Aravule. On the fields of Pelennor. Before the Black Gate of Mordor. We lost many souls. They pay the ultimate price so that we may stand here before this newly built Tharbad and look forward to days ahead. But I know you, Prince, did not do it alone. Where are your friends? For I sent word for them before my coming. Where is the halfling, the dwarf, and the elves that accompanied you on your journey? Bring them forth, All eyes here shall gaze upon them and know. They are the models that we should strive for. The
Arv-
individuals that will make this new region a peaceful place for years to come.
Yeah, Aravule stands and waves. Goodwill, Vidar, Aglaron, Arthanur, come forth.
Goodwill comes charging up from behind Aravule, and as soon as he's in front of Aragorn and Arwen, he drops to one knee. Goodwill
Vidar,
took at your service, sire.
Vidar quickly follows up behind Goodwill, and he's right next to him on his knees, and he just bows his head. Oi, King, my lady, I am here to serve you both.
Aglaron takes a place on the other side of Goodwill, likewise giving a deep bow.
At this time, the king looks to his bride. He walks over to her white stallion and holds her left hand as she gracefully dismounts her steed. She gazes down upon the halfling and upon the dwarf, gently smiling, and walks behind them, circumambulating before coming to rest at her king's right hand. I see why you spoke so highly of them, Aragorn. It is soon will be that the rest of my kin will sail into the west. We leave this land to you. It will be yours to defend, if you would have it. But my heart is full. I have much hope for you. Now do not judge my words as folly. I do think there will be hard times ahead. The world will not be a peaceful place long. There will be challenges. But if you can delete the Dark Lord Sauron, who fell like so many years and ages before him, like his lord fell, I have the faith that you can overcome any challenges here in this Middle-earth. And she looks upwards, and like the elves that came with Arthanur are kind of like along the bridge as well, in like a very ceremonial stance. She looks up at them and nods. Now rise, all of you. This is not such a somber occasion. It is time to celebrate, for Tharbad has been rebuilt, and the kingdom of Cardolan stands forth once again. All the people cheer.
Goodwill stands by Aravule's side, gazing upon the beauty of Arwen and basking in the glory of the King Elessar.
Vidar stands next to Goodwill, and he places a hand on Goodwill's shoulder, and he's smiling from ear to ear as he looks over his friends.
And so that evening passes with more ceremony, more song, more food and drink. The new queen and the high king rain praise upon the Prince of Cardolan and all those gathered. But eventually, tomorrow comes, and then the day after, and the day after, and it's time to depart. And this is where we are going to end our journey. And I'll let each of you role play, starting with Aravule, how this script adventure ends for your character. And Aravule, I will leave you here in Tharbad.
Mhm.
You take it away.
At the parting of his friends, Aravule is somber. First, he approaches the two elves, Arthanur and Aglaron. He comes to Aglaron first and places a hand on his shoulder. They have known each other the longest of each of these fellows. What is your plan, my old friend? Will you go into the west, or will you stay in this Middle-earth for some time?
I shall resume the hunt in Mirkwood. And know, good king, should you ever need my bow, you have but to send word.
Hopefully I do not, but I shall, if it is required. Hopefully the darkness is receding from your home, so that it's meant to be a splendor once again as it was in ages past. And he gives him a pat on the shoulder and a squeeze.
Indeed, I hope it is so.
And to Arthanur he looks and says, "And you?"
My time here in the east of Middle-earth is soon at an end, Aravule. I visited the shores in the west once upon a time, and to be honest, my heart longs to return to the undying lands. It is the way of things here. My kin will join me. I will sail into the uttermost west. But not yet. I still have a short time to linger here, among the babbling brooks, the sighing pine trees, and the whispering wind that I love so well. No, I will see Goodwill took safely home. And then I will go to the Grey Havens and await what company may come there next.
Then this is goodbye.
Indeed. This is goodbye. All roads must have an end, or Aravule. But in time we may find that these same roads will pick up in a different place, in a different time. Perhaps after the song of Ilúvatar ends and the circle of this world is broken, we will meet again.
Partly.
And Arthanur clasps Aravule on the shoulder. I will leave this with you. And he gives you his spear.
Just pause for a moment. I think Tet had to step away from his computer.
Many partings, many partings. I heard somebody say something in the background, although it wasn't as funny as when Doc's ex-wife says, "What the fuck are you doing down there?" I remember those days.
Yeah, that's always going to be a classic.
I've had a couple like that, but I've always been muted. Yeah, that was good. That doesn't compare to the dudes.
Oh, jeez.
Well, do you want to move on and say goodbye to Goodwill and Vidar and Aglaron?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So we'll do Goodwill. Let's do Vidar first. Let's see here. Let's move. This looks like a good piece of art. Kinda.
Oh yeah.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Not everybody is there in character, obviously, but let's say that Aglaron and Vidar have made their way up the Greenway, and down the East Road and across the Misty Mountains, and they're on the eastern edge of Mirkwood, where Aglaron will turn back home and Vidar will head back to the Iron Hills. Give me that scene and what that looks like.
As they prepare to part company, Aglaron clasps Vidar's hand. It has been good to ride with you again, son of Godar. I wish you much fortune in your rule in the Iron Hills.
We are also clasping his hand in friendship, with his head down, clasping his hand tightly. Aglaron, I will miss you as you cross the waters to the west. I never thought an elf would have this impact on me. I never thought an elf would feel like family. I never thought an elf would feel like a brother. But you, Aglaron, you have made an impression on my heart and on my life that I will never forget. And I hope that wherever it is you are going, that there is some memory of us, of me, as your friend. Should you ever need me, Aglaron, I will be your friend to the end. You just say what you need, and I am at your side.
The elf looks slightly uncomfortable. He lowers his head and nods. I lack the expertise with words of you and Goodwill. But no, friend dwarf, I feel much the same.
And Vidar smiles, a huge smile, as he shakes Aglaron's hands in both of his hands, up and down. And then he reaches into his pack and he pulls out a stone. It's a simple piece of malachite that he picked up along the travels. It's an emerald green with white swirls in it. And he hands it over to Aglaron. Boy, it's not worth anything, but it's beautiful, isn't it?
Indeed, and it holds great worth to me. I shall think of you every time I gaze upon it.
And Vidar presses it into his hand. And he looks at his friend one more time and nods to him as he makes his way off into the different directions.
As Aglaron starts to ride away, he looks over his shoulder and gives a hearty, "Oi!"
Vidar just smiles and laughs, and he raises his mattock into the air and just yells back, "Oi!" And his smile fades, and he looks down at the ground. And again turns his head to wipe his eyes.
Aglaron for a final time fades under the dark eaves of Mirkwood. But as the camera pans out, you see that that once shadowy place has now again become Greenwood the Great, as those gray elves once more tend their forest home. Vidar makes his way further and further north into the hills, where he finds his kinfolk resting beside a roaring fire. The forges are loud, and he is greeted with kind words and raucous laughter. Vidar the Stout, elf friend, returns. And finally, making their way north along the Greenway one last time, Arthanur and Goodwill trot up to his hobbit hole. They pass gardeners. They pass shepherds tending their flock. They pass children playing a game in the street. And eventually Arthanur makes a turn and sees a chimney with wisps of gray smoke rising into the air, and the smell of something savory on the fire. I suppose this is it, Goodwill. You're home at last. Maybe for one last time.
Goodwill stands beside Arthanur and looks up at him. Home at last. And you're on your way to a new home. But before you leave, my dear friend, my fellow, I have one last song. You have crossed seas and mountains and oceans. You came to a place you never imagined you would be. You brought with you the strength of a hurricane, and you carry with you the weight of the world on your shoulders. I know sometimes the way you feel about being in a place so foreign, and I have felt this too whenever I leave the Shire. The feeling that we don't belong sometimes haunts us now and then. But know this, it won't be for too long. Soon you will be with your kin and I shall be with mine. Remember the friendship that we once shared. Miss me a little, but we shall let each other go. This journey we all are on, we must go at it alone. But whenever we are lonely and sick at heart, remember we have friends all around to help us bury our sorrows. And it is our friends and in their memories that we shall continue to do good deeds, my friend. So long, for I shall not say goodbye. We shall meet again.
Arthanur stands next to his horse, watching Goodwill walk towards the small round door of his hobbit hole. So long, Goodwill Tuk. I think you may be right. It was a pleasure meeting you, if only too brief of a time. You are a wise man. I do hope that no hard times will come to the Shire, but I have lived too many years to know that evil won't once again rear its head. But I know that the stout hearts of hobbit folk will win out in the end. And you, my friend Goodwill Tuk, are the stoutest of all. He goes and mounts his horse, and starts to trot off down the lane, turning and watching Goodwill as he enters his home And the last thing he hears is this gentle clack of a round green door. A few years passed. Much has changed in the Shire. There's a gentleman named Samwise Gamgee who eventually becomes a mayor there. And one day, a company of elves are seen to pass through the Shire on their way to the Grey Havens. Among their number is Arthanur, an elf of Imladris. They go to the shores of Middle-earth, the western shores of Aragorn, and there meet a company of old friends. The ring bearers are there, as is Elrond, and the one you know as Gandalf. After kind words, they say their farewell to Middle-earth and fade off into the west. That's it.
Bravo.
Awesome.
Bravo.
Fantastic.
Goodbye, old friends. It took everything in my being to not say, "You kneel for no one."